Majed, I have a really good time listening to you. You should actually write some book. You know, that's an idea, but I will cut you on this. You mentioned something very important actually about the health and safety, and you mentioned that you have some more knowledge about the asthma and how people they dive with asthma, or how do they do the spearfishing or freediving. So if you can tell us something more, because so many people they think if they do have asthma they are done, they cannot actually do this anymore, or they cannot do it, or they cannot start. So what would you say, how would you comment on this?
I mean, I wouldn't encourage everyone who has asthma to go into spearfishing. Number one, spearfishing, sort of, for people who are asthmatic, can be quite difficult. The change in temperature can trigger an asthma attack. The change in pressure can trigger an asthma attack. You know, the breathing difficultly or getting nervous underwater can trigger an asthma attack, and your lungs in spearfishing are quite important. That being said, it doesn't stop me, and it shouldn't stop anyone from spearfishing. You know, people think that spearfishermen or freedivers who are able to hold their breath for 2-3 minutes because they're super fit or super in shape, or they can run 10 kilometers in 5 seconds. That they can't. Spearfishing is, and the reason I enjoy the sport is, lazy people would be the best freedivers ever. People who can stay calm while they're in the water, people who don't want to move much, people who are just able to turn their brain off, and that's what drew me to spearfishing and freediving initially in the beginning. It's a type of meditation. You know, you're floating in the water, you're doing these breathing exercises, you know, 8 seconds, 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, or however, you know, hook breathing, or there's just countless other ways that people practice relaxing their breath and lowering their heart rate. And in my opinion, that's what spearfishing is. It's a type of meditation. It's a sport where you need to slow yourself down, and the slower you go and the softer you do it, the better you are. And you know, with time, you realize that when you start off spearfishing, you want to look at a fish, go down, chase it, and shoot it. But in fact, it's the exact opposite, right? You go down as slow as you can, you move as slow as you can, you don't make hasty movements in the water, you relax at the bottom, and eventually the fish come straight towards you, and you're rewarded. And the reason I say this is asthma has been difficult. Diving with asthma has been difficult, but as long as you take the proper precaution, and as long as you understand the sport you're practicing, it's not dangerous at all. But for someone starting off, and if I say, if you are overweight, if you have asthma, if your health is poorly, if I've seen people with no legs spearfish, right? It won't stop you from the sport of freediving. Freediving is a sport that anyone can do at any time, as long as it is practiced appropriately and safely.
Did you have a chance to go through the survey you had, huh?
Yes.
For the survey.
Yes.
Can we change the topic a bit?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. I see that you're flexible, all directions. So I'm a member of few WhatsApp groups about spearfishing in the UAE, and there's plenty of people, which is great. One day I came up with the idea about the survey, the online survey, which is going to finish within next 2 days. And as I remember, you told me that you actually attended that survey, you participated in the survey. I'm just curious, how do you like the idea of this survey? Like, is it something that we should continue with, or do you think people they will share? Are they open to share this, what they can say? What are your thoughts?
So I can't speak for the general public, but I mean, about myself, spearfishing and freediving is a sport which allows me to escape from, you know, dry land, from the hectic work environment, from any stress you might have at home or in the office, or absolutely anything. So I don't think I would be a person to come forward and fill out any sort of survey, any sort of survey regarding spearfishing, unless, you know, at the end of that survey, for example, there would be an article I could read, or a video I could see, or something I could learn, or maybe a product discount on something that's quite popular, which is very difficult in spearfishing. Everyone uses different gear, different tools. It would be very difficult. The reason or at least to see the results, live results of the survey as well, would interest me. So if to see how many other people answered similar to me, or how many people are available out there of the general population that have gone diving 2 years, 3 years, how frequently they go. That information also, even if it's not an incentive to say a material incentive, just an information incentive would have been enough. For me, if I wasn't involved in this interview process and you didn't send me the survey, is what I mean. That you know, after the survey, you could see how many people have similar interests, or how many people have also been diving in the similar regions and similar areas, or faced similar difficulties. It would have been enough incentive for a free diver to say, "Oh, I could learn something more."
Yeah, very valuable points. So I think to make you happy, I will tell you that basically we're going to close the survey on 21st, and then definitely we're going to sit, we're going to bow over that, and we're going to prepare a small video analyzing exactly this, what you're looking for. So just to make things more interactive, I would say. So is it something that you would like to see? All right. Okay. What about the topic with Dubai license, or you think it doesn't make sense to talk about this? I mean, just asking, you know, as an opinion, because like, should we discuss about this? Of course I can always ask, but like, what do you think? Does it make sense to actually, yeah?
I think it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. All right, okay. Because like, for instance, anyway, you are going, let's say, to Fujairah, but basically about the license in Fujairah, I mean, nobody's probably asking you, but okay.
Is there a license?
That's the thing, there's nothing, yeah, but what about the Coast Guard if they're going to ask you? What are you going to tell them, for instance?
Tell them I'm spearfishing. A license for freediving already exists today. You can go...
You know what I mean by saying a license? I mean, the thing is that I'm afraid, honestly saying, to go and be asked by the police, why do you actually spearfish? Give me your gun back. And that's the only reason. But
Right.
yes, I do want to actually have some knowledge more. I attended SSI 1, for instance, yeah? So spearfishing. I know, I've been also reading, or let's say, so it's more about this that, you know, I want to be actually confident that yes, of course, jet skis they are here and I have to be afraid, but I don't want to have any talk with the police or Coast Guard, you know?
Right. I think visibility on which areas are prohibited and not prohibited is more of something that is required rather than a license. How is it?
No, that's all right, I think. Yeah, that's what I mean.
It's more required than a license. A license adds barriers to the sport, right? Spearfishing has always been allowed in the UAE. It has never been banned in the UAE. Yes, there are some areas where you can't practice it, but not because it is not allowed. It's mainly because those areas are not safe for you to be swimming in.
Are you
So,
sure?
yes.
Okay.
I mean, there is no law that says spearfishing is illegal, or you need a license for spearfishing. You need a fishing license. And again, I'm the worst person to ask about these questions because I've been doing whatever I want for 29 years. There was no such thing as a gun license, or when I was 1 year old, 2 year old, people had people walked around with firearms, and it wasn't until later on that firearms were not allowed. And the first time I heard of a fishing license, people had already had licenses for 2 or 3 years because we never heard the needing a license to spearfish, and now spearfishing. So I would say that having a license is not in my opinion, is not necessary. A necessary direction. The necessary direction would be, because as most people say, people who have a license feel safe, and I understand that people want to reach that level of safety. But what people want to also understand is freediving, spearfishing is a sport that a father does with his son. I was in the shop the other day, and a father came in with his son, and they were buying equipment, and his son is 7. If you start licensing it, then you'll have an age requirement for spearfishing. You'll have an ability requirement for spearfishing. Someone like me who has asthma would never be able to spearfish. I would never get a license. They say you have a lung condition, sorry, you can't do it. I think I'm doing pretty well so far. so which is my point entirely. I wouldn't personally, I wouldn't want barriers added to the sport that I didn't need any barriers to start.
Cool. Absolutely, I understand your point. That's a very valid point.
I once went out on a raft. As big as maybe 3.5 meters, roughly. It's an inflatable raft. It has a wooden panel it's one of those, it's not a fixed raft. So you take the wooden panel, you open it, and I went 50 minutes into the sea on this little raft with a small engine. It was me and a friend of mine, and it was a foggy day. We didn't see where we were going. There was no GPS. We were in Fujairah, and the Coast Guard, it came to us, and in the middle of nowhere, you can barely see land because there's so much fog in the morning. And they asked us, "What are you doing here? You're in a small raft. I'm sure that raft it doesn't have any safety equipment. I can see you guys have life jackets, but are you crazy? Like, anything happens to you here, you're never gonna reach shore back again." So I told him, "Yeah, but we're spearfishing and we're freediving, and don't worry about it." And the Coast Guard in Fujairah, God bless them, they understand. They not only follow protocol and rules. He then told us, "You're not supposed to be this far out with your raft. Are you done doing what you're doing?" And luckily we were done what we were doing in that area. And he went and escorted us back all the way to shore. And I don't think, and sorry, coming back to your question, I don't think that having a license for spearfishing would have changed that interaction in any what way, or any interaction for that matter. Because once, what I could see a license doing is, instead of having a license for spearfishing, you could have a license that ultimately allowed you to spearfish. But what the steps of that license, you would first have to gain knowledge of the different species of fish in the area, when these species are allowed to be fished or allowed to be harvested from the sea, how to differentiate this sort of hamor from this sort of hamor, because we have two, three, four, we have many types of hamors, but the general ones that I know is you have a brown one that grows up to 20, 30, 40 kgs, and you have a red one that doesn't really grow that big. So shooting or harvesting a hamor this big, and if it's the brown kind that could grow much larger and reaches sexual maturity at a later stage, is a mistake, while shooting a red one at this size is perfectly acceptable. So if a license would have to ever come in place, I would rather it touch up on the points that do benefit spearfishermen, instead of for example, something like gun safety. It holds no relevance in spearfishing. There's no such thing as gun safety. Gun safety is a myth. You're in the water, you have a gun, you put it on safety, it's not safe. It's not a safe gun. It's still a gun, it's still a harpoon, there's still rubber, it can fire at any random direction at any sort of time. The trigger could be loose, the trigger could be old, you couldn't have put it in correctly. Things like gun safety or spearfishing safety, I'd like to see those aspects elaborated on more, rather than a normal spearfishing license, because it's not like driving a car. You don't go from one area to the next, and someone can look at you do it completely and say, "That guy knows how to drive a car." It's spearfishing. That guy could know how to. You could say, yes, someone is able to spearfish, but is he the same as someone who's been doing it for 30 years? No. Can you say they have the same level of experience? No. Can you judge that experience? No. It's very difficult to judge a spearfisherman, whether they, especially freediving is a whole different story. You can say, yes, he's reached a certain depth, he's reached a certain time, but spearfishing takes you to a place where you need to know the certain species that you hunt. You need to know the type of equipment you're using. In my mind, it's difficult for me to see where the ambiguity is between people's thoughts and what is actuality, because I don't concern myself with what people assume is right, because and what the actual practice is. I'm more about going into the water and testing it all out, and trying to just do instead of achieve. But for example, there's a big misconception that certain gear is for certain things. People say that fiberglass fins are for rocky areas so that you don't damage your fins, and carbon fins are for free divers and deep dives, and plastic fins are for beginners. But it's not true. I mean, I've seen a gentleman, I swear he had, if you've ever been to Carrefour, he had two rubber fins that were short, and we were diving 24 meters. And if you ever wore short, rigid fins, you'll understand that you have to kick 3 times as hard to get down. And this is an extreme example, but he was mermaid finning all the way down, and that's what he did to overcompensate his situation. And spearfishing is all about finding that sweet spot between experience and gear. Just last weekend, what did we say weekend? 3 weeks ago approximately, we went to Fujairah. We wanted to go outside, and there was a storm warning. They didn't let us go. So we're stubborn people, and we went to the beach. We got our gear on. We started swimming directly into the waves, and I was using a gun that I'm not comfortable with because I'd lost my previous gun. I'd shot a 20 kg wahoo, and in the commotion of landing it, the gun dropped, and so I was using a 120 wooden gun, a 120 centimeter wooden gun, and we swam maybe an hour and 20 minutes into the water because Fujairah, you have to swim quite deep, quite far away in order to reach a depth where it's 10-12 meters, which is not much, but the swim was quite halfway there. One of the rubbers on my old gun snapped. So now I have a gun I'm not comfortable with rubbers that are 10 years, 12 years old, and I have one instead of two. And I still came back with a 13.2 kg kingfish. And it's never about the gear, and I hope people don't focus too much about it. Of course, not having fins versus having fins makes a difference. But if you're looking at plastic fins, rubber fins, carbon fins, fiberglass fins, whatever you feel comfortable in, whatever you try, that'll work for you. Of course, later on you might want to get fins that look cooler. That's a whole different thing. If fins look nicer and you want to get it, yeah, sure. But fins will not give you performance, just like camouflaged wetsuits won't give you performance, or a 140 centimeter gun won't give you performance. Sure, you have the ability to shoot at 7 meter range instead of 3. But if you're good at I'm not saying if you're good at what you do, if you do what you're supposed to do correctly, you don't need 7 meters. You can, the last weekend, the kingfish that came up to me, I couldn't even shoot it because it was closer than the tip of my gun. So I had to scare it away first and then shoot it. And then, it's so the key takeaway I want people to understand from what I'm trying to say is don't focus too much on the gear. Get the key components of spearfishing and freediving down, and then you'll realize what the gaps in your gear are required. I mean, having the best gun and having the best fins, having the best whatever is all useless if you don't know how to relax on the water. If you don't know how to stay calm. And that's what I want people to understand more. I always see, people I talk to, they're like, oh, of course he was able to shoot that fish. He has a 140 centimeter triple rubber gun. Well, okay, you might land a few fish that way, chasing them and shooting them, but you won't. The big ones certainly will. You won't land them that way. The biggest fish. I have a friend of mine who swears he has maybe 13 different guns, and he swears that his 90 centimeter shoots more fish than his 150, 140, and 130 centimeter. And the reason being is because when he's holding that 90 centimeter gun, he is more focused on his skill and his efforts into getting the fish closer to him than he is confident about the range of his shot.
A simple question and probably a hard answer because we don't all know many things. What do you think? How many spearfishers are in the UAE, regardless from the nationality? So, like, do you have any rough idea about maybe the number of people, like, or if you go out with your friends for a trip, you see different boats and you really see different spearos? What do you think? What would you say about the number?
I mean, it's interesting you ask that because spearfishing, again, it's not a very community-driven sport. You find a group of people that you like to go spearfishing with, and you try and stick to them. And if you like them, you continue with them, and then you know 5 people for the rest of your life, and you never really meet anyone else. So it's a difficult question to answer. And I suppose shop owners and people who do charters can answer that question more. But if I were to estimate, I personally have met maybe between 40 to 60 people, and I would imagine that, and these predominantly this is in Dubai, and I would imagine that in Abu Dhabi people do it as well. So the population, my guess, would be north of 1,000. I wouldn't imagine that a lot of people are doing it, especially doing it with the. Again, I don't call going to the shallows and shooting fish spearfishing. You're snorkeling, you're shooting fish. That's great, and that's in itself very fun. I used to do that. That's great. But spearfishing and where it becomes a little dangerous, where you're holding your breath, where you're going diving, I don't imagine a lot of people practice the sport. And the reason I say this is because initially when starting off, I would jump at any opportunity to get on anyone's boat and anyone's trip because I just wanted to get to know the community and learn, even though I have my own boat. So I just wanted to learn from other people as much as possible, and it's very difficult. It's not easy at all.
Majed, tell me, did you have any fish today for lunch or for the breakfast?
No.
Or did you eat fish last time?
I had fish yesterday, but I don't. Tomorrow I'm going spearfishing, so I don't eat very much food before I go spearfishing. So for dinner I'll have maybe an apple or an orange, something light and easy. And for breakfast tomorrow I'll have a banana, but that's it. So I try to keep my digestive tract as empty as possible.
So we're starting the weekend, and then some people are lucky and going for spearfishing tomorrow, which is great, and spearfishing trip. So how are you going to prepare? What is your way of preparation for any kind of trip? I'm just very curious. And you're going to Fujairah, correct?
Yes, tomorrow we're going to Fujairah. So we've already discovered most of the Dubai waters and Sharjah waters since I was 7 years old until 28. So we kept our boat now in Fujairah for the last year, and we've been going every Friday to discover more and more of Fujairah. It's a beautiful place. I hope everyone gets a chance to visit there. They have a small island there, Snoopy Island, and all these natural reserves over there that it goes up to 3-4 meters to snorkel in. You'll have a great time. How I prepare for the sport more is, well, firstly, I stay active every day. I make sure that my body can handle the level of stress, because we were in the water for 6, 7, 8 hours, and I'm not saying that it's not 6, 7, 8 hours of swimming, so don't worry. Most of it is just spent floating in the water waiting to go down, right? But I do an hour of workout. I try to run for an hour every day, half an hour. It doesn't have to be much, just so that you're ready. Your body is adjusted to doing some sort of strenuous activity. I'm not saying you have to be an athlete, and I'm nowhere near an athlete. I make sure to eat one day before. I make sure to eat foods that are easily digestible, so that my digestive tract, and people don't know this, a lot of people don't know this, but the emptier your digestive tract, the less energy your body is using to digest, and the more oxygen you have available to use in your body for spearfishing. As an example, if I had a big barbecue the night before I go spearfishing, my dive time would go down from 2 minutes to 1 minute and 10 seconds. And that's a considerable amount, because it takes 20 seconds to get down. It takes 25 seconds to get up. So it's a difference between staying at the bottom is where you want to be, right? So it's a difference between staying at the bottom 20 seconds and staying at the bottom for 1 minute and 20 seconds. So, which is why preparation is the key. So I make sure to eat foods that don't contain a lot of fats. foods that are mostly alkaline for your body, so they basically keep the pH of your body mostly basic, because the more alkaline your body is, the better oxygen is received, and the more acidic your body is, the more difficult it is for your oxygen to be circulated through your body. This is just a very layman's understanding of, it's bro science basically, right? But there's some truth to that. I make sure to take my vitamins, stay well hydrated, and make sure to have all my gear in place. If I list, I require another 20 minutes to talk about all the things I have in my bag, from nasal sprays to spare boots and spare gloves, spare goggles, spare gun, bananas, a protein shake, some sort of hydration fluid, and on and on and on. And it basically goes down to make sure you're rested well, make sure you sleep well the night before, make sure you don't exert yourself the day before. So don't work out 3-4 hours training for your diving when you're going the next day, so you don't want to be fatigued for it already. Make sure you're well hydrated while you're diving. So I understand that a lot of people, they dive for 4 or 5 hours straight. I dive for 2.5 hours, I come back up. If you don't have a boat, make sure you tie a bottle of water to your buoy or to your float line, or somewhere along you where you have access to drinking it, because if you're dehydrated, you're prone to blackouts. You're not going to enjoy it. Your throat's all sticky, and your body is less comfortable. And if you're less comfortable, you're spending less time there, and you don't want to be in that situation. And it's dangerous for you as well. So don't eat heavy before you go. Make sure you always stay hydrated. Try to stay away from anything 2 or 3 days. 2 or 3 days is enough before diving. Stay away from red meat, stay away from processed foods, stay away from foods that might, sit in your stomach for a very long period of time. And
So that's our Instagram handle. You will definitely have some good updates about this, what's going on. The Facebook group, UAE Active Spearo, which is purely for actually everybody who wishes to share the videos and posting pictures from any kind of spearfishing actions here in the UAE.